Yo, this is Jumping Jack Frost, and welcome to the Frost Report. Boom! Yo, welcome along to another edition of the Frost Report. Today we got a very, very special guest. First of all, I want to introduce today's co-host, Miss Jay Davison, who is in presenting the show with me today. And we got a very, very, very special guest today, the iconic, legendary Mr. Chuck D from Public Enemy. Chuck, thank you so much for taking part today. We really appreciate it. I want to start off by first question we want to ask is, last year, in the wake of countless racist murders pushed into the spotlight and the mainstream media, what emotion drove you back to the studio to re-record a 30-year-old classic?
It was really like Young Energy brought this up because this is their world.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I said, listen, you're not 18. I mean, you're 18, but you're not 4 years old. You're not 5 years old. So it comes a time you have to bend and make and shape the world that you want to live in. And your energy is going to dictate that. And they felt that younger people felt slapped in the face by older authority. And they felt like they really started to see the hypocrisies for the first time in their lives. So they called about wanting to do Fight the Power. And I was like, you guys need to find your own theme that speaks for the moment.
Yeah.
But as they Rolodex throughout their lifetimes and their surroundings, they came back to that moment that, that era where Public Enemy and many others had spoke truth to power. And they said, no, we want to do that and over again. That speaks for this moment right now, because our parents, our older brothers and sisters or uncles or whatever, aunts, told us about this time. And here we are, where we just thought that was just music or whatever they was into, and this is real. And so when they wanted to roll the drum forward on that, I'll be stupid to be like, nah, come up with your own. And understand, Fight the Power is not Public Enemy's narrative that we own solely. I was inspired by the Ozzy Brothers when I was 15. They did the first Fight the Power. 14 years later, for the soundtrack of Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, which was speaking to a lot of unrest in the New York City area where people live pack to pack, just like they do in London. It's a vertical city and stuff like that. And they pull a lot of tricks and games on zoning and things like that. There was, double talk, hypocrisy, and just in the same area where people lived. They was tired of that. Spike Lee did a movie speaking on that, and we did the soundtrack and anthem, because Spike was like, I need the anthem for it.
Yeah.
Fight the Power spoke to that. That's the second Fight the Power. So actually the narrative of Fight the Power, we don't own the narrative that you should fight the power. Its ownership is in the movement. It's not in, a group that claims the title. It's like, yeah, you claim a title in a song, but you can't claim the movement. So that's how that happened about. So, I was honored, but, I'm one of, many people that said, okay, it speaks to the moment because this is your world. It ain't my world. More years behind me than in front of me. Yeah. Young people is their world, but they, like young people mean what? Does it mean 4 or 5 years old? No, if you're 30 years old, you really don't classify as young people, young adults. And I just think that society tries to young people down as they view as threats.
So you spoke there about young people coming to you, and that talks to me a lot about young leadership. I think people forget that movements like the Panthers back in the day, and like Fred Hampton was 23, I think, when he was murdered by the Feds. So you see that leadership does come from that young energy. And I was just thinking, what will it take for there to be, I guess, what would be the catalyst of a revolution of consciousness? Because it feels like we're out here sleepwalking.
You're not even getting deep on it. Real simple. I think when people feel like they could go to sleep, they feel real comfortable. So even if the generation before is like, nah, I don't trust it, the next generation rebels against that just to be different. Like, okay, you was 14, now you're 21. So you can't really live the life where you was 14. You can have the fun that you have, but at 21 is different than 14. So I think a lot of basic things got to tie people together. And you don't want catastrophe always to wake everybody up. I think people in this world, they want peace, love, understanding, food, to be able to live comfortable, not be destroyed by catastrophe or somebody taking advantage of them. I think most human beings want a lot of the same things. But when it comes down to you can't get what that situation got, or one person or 1% got everything, then you're going to get people who are mad because I want that too. And I think the important thing on this planet is people, places, and things in that order. Things could get manufactured and people could get thrown into those constructs. But people are very important. Human beings are very important, especially if they govern this planet where all the other species are, reside. And then places are important. Because a lot of times people just think what they're experiencing in their pocket of wherever they at is the only thing that's going on. For years, when we first Public Enemy came to London in the middle of the 80s, our point was to tell that generation at that particular time who liked the music, like, y'all are not alone. So don't feel that you're alone in your struggles, because we are connected in a diaspora of people who are more connected than apart. We're separated by a lot of different things in the middle, but really, we're really all connected.
So we're going back to that time in the mid-80s. I'm going to take you back to 1989. I'm going to set the scene, right? A couple of years before, we had riots in Brixton. The tension was high. Public Enemy came to town. We had police vans all around the block, right? Because the authorities were scared that it was going to trigger another situation.
Right.
And what made it worse, they didn't let Griff in the country. Do you remember that show?
Yeah.
They didn't let Griff in the country. The tensions were high, and Brixton Academy was just like, it was popping that night. And when we look at the climate then, it says we have a similar climate here now. So you were really ahead of your time in the message and just the whole thing, because if you came here now with that same thing, you probably have these kids coming up now, coming to that show, expressing themselves in that same way. That was a very, very powerful time, and the message out there was still relevant now.
But that was that particular generation. 10 years before that, you had unrest.
Yeah. And
10 years before that, you had a situation of unrest. As far as the white cats, the punks talked to it a little bit, but the reggae artists spoke directly to it. So you can't, detach a Linton Kwesi Johnson and all those guys spoke to that, who came through reggae and roots music, who spoke to the disparities. So once they separate and say, okay, yeah, that's reggae and this is rap, there's a contingent that even has the audacity to tell people that hip hop doesn't come out of reggae, Jamaica, roots, and toasting. And these people are not even they're anti the diaspora. And understand that their movement is challenging the United States Constitution. I won't even name the organization, but their separation and their division on what is what and what comes out of us as a people, to me, is not helpful. It's not positive. And there's a large number of Black folk in the United States of America who are reduced by division.
Instead of sitting here and seeing each other as just Black people, it's like, you're an American, I'm of Jamaican descent, you've got Nigerians over there, you've got Brazilians, you've got French Black people. We're spread all around the world, and we're divided by by concepts that were not created for us and not created by us in a situation that doesn't benefit us, and yet still it's what endures, you know.
I mean, just by the fact that we happen to speak the kings and queens English, although I'm speaking American, and people might be speaking a bastard, a brogue of whatever that language is, but these languages were beat into us as the first dividing lines. Your last name tells volumes of the division that have been placed upon you. Other than you saying that, okay, yeah, it's more than a construct; it's a reality into a. And like I said, just last name. You ask the average white person in the United States, Europe, and you tell them that your last name happens to be something like McGinnis or Brown or Johnson or whatever. And when you tell them exactly where it comes from, or Murphy, you know, they're shocked and amazed when you tell them, like, well, that's not our original name. This is where it came from. And I'm stuck with this like a tattoo. Now, to counter that, it's like we all got to live on this planet together. And we know that people are shooting things into space and trying to oxidize Mars and finding exoplanets with telescopes. So, you know, truth in the matter is we ain't living as far as the science that we know, we ain't living no damn place else right now. So we're going to get it together and live on this piece of driftwood and take care of it until that science comes to hit us, or you figure out, take your gambles on the hereafter.
Well, when you were talking about, I think it was Fight the Power of the book, where you spoke about Black leadership, and you said that no one coming to rescue us. And I say this to people all the time, ain't nobody coming to save us. And so, you know, our redemption is down to us. Like, where does that, you know, what does that look like in reality?
Old book, number one. But at 36 years old, I had a little bit of the combinations of being around the world, seeing a lot of people, places, and things, and being able to take a cross section of what I read and what I've seen and who I talked to. Because, you know, who you talk to is very important. It's probably just as important or even more than kind of like what you read. Because when you read from one person, when you're actually talking to somebody or talking to a group of people, then it all comes out in the wash where you're able to say, wow, okay, I get it. Like my father, you know, he grew up in Harlem. So if I read about Harlem and my dad, you know, would tell me, like, yeah, I don't care what you read, but this is what happened. You know what I'm saying? We could read all we want about Hackney, but when you talk to somebody who's been in Hackney for like 30 years and talk to their parents, then you know what? That's the beginning of being clarified on how you weigh that information. And so when I said don't believe the hype way back in the days, it didn't say don't believe information, it meant to challenge information.
What would you say about that? NFTs, blockchain, crypto, metaverse, are all these things key to understanding the new and evolving economy?
When you're able to understand it and you have enough existence in the analog world, as we say, and also understanding in the digital world, which is swimming in day by day, you're able to fight it off because you have one leg into how it used to be. But what you have to be able to prepare is the next generations where they see it as being the only thing that they know. So your fight is going to be spending time with people who are 2 generations down to try to tell them to look out for something. They're going to look at you side-eyed like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is my reality. So we start reaching into the different social sciences as social sciences are getting kind of like doctored and manipulated for the fact of touching people to make them feel comfortable, and they're living in the existence that make them feel content. So people, you know, especially if you've experienced and we've experienced in many parts of the world and over here and over there, is that when a government says be still and don't go nowhere, you can't leave the country and stay the hell up in your house. We know back in the day, you might have had people rebellious to that and they were willing to die. People ain't willing to die like that. So the government's going to say, stay in, you know, for your own good. And if you don't understand for your own good, we'll make you stay in, or we'll lock you up, or we'll kill you. Yeah, you could fight it, but also you will have to comprehend it as it's coming at us and we have to see it. It's like somebody throwing punches at you. You know, the train that you're able to duck and slip a punch and stuff. If you don't see it coming, you can get knocked to the floor and not realize. Matter of fact, you get knocked to the floor and learn to like it. And we've been a people that have been abused, and now we done flipped it to the point it's been flipped on us where we start praising abuse. We start having culture rooted in so much abuse that it becomes a course initiative. It becomes like, you know, if you look at movies or music in the United States, what they might call hip hop, it's a lot of counterproductive hate self that drives the monetary value of it by everybody else buying into it and thinking it's you know, this is just us, it's our culture, it's normal.
To someone who grew up in the 60s, saw civil rights movements, saw big assassinations, you came up in a completely different time to a generation now who are kind of soft in a way.
I mean, I eat eggs, but I ain't never took no egg out of a chicken.
Yeah, I hear that.
Relatives 2 generations older, they're like, oh yeah, go in the backyard, take the chicken, boom.
Oh, yeah.
With that generation, like born in 1990 or whatever, like in a city and whatever, first world country, as they say, they think chickens belong in a box, man.
What gets lost in that? What is anything lost or no?
Other things get lost, but then also you can't spend your time on what's lost. You got to figure on what's gained and how you manage what's gained. You can't master it. Just like time, we can't master time, but we can work harder on managing time because time is going to come at us no matter what.
One thing's universal, though, or one thing endures, is that profit, you know, corporations, as we know it and as we understand it, they survive, or their concern is about profit. That's the bottom line. The bottom line is the bottom line. So
in new currencies?
In new currencies and old currencies, right? So the question is then, where does that leave the quote unquote black CNN if those corporations kind of own the platforms that hip hop expresses itself on, the dances, the creativity of it is the you know, I know that the culture doesn't only solely live on those platforms, but in terms of the music, where does that leave the voice if the platforms decide what's heard and what's not?
Somebody studies you more than you know yourself, you're in trouble. You've adopted and you're a volunteer slave. If they know more about you than you know yourself. So that's the number one goal. Who am I? How am I looked at? What's my history? What other people can relate to this story I have? Where are we going to go? And where am I going to go in the middle of we? How do I turn me into we? Can I dig it? Do I accept it? That's a difficulty that we're going to have as a collective, because individual effort, you can go down a hill easy. It might be hard to go up that hill. Knowledge of self, that's going against the grain real hard.
Yeah, definitely.
And if, you know, before it was to be like, I want to know about myself, because I don't know about myself. Nobody damn near going to know about who we are, whatever, because nobody cared. No, fast forward 30 years later. No, a person might have you figured out. Like, yeah, I want to know more about you than you know about yourself. Then also you got to be able to define what we love. We say, yeah, well, I love this. If you can't define what you love, then you shouldn't say the word love.
Isn't that a division that's waiting to happen between those who are willing and those who are not?
Yeah. The only thing that's going to make you live in the next 50 years is you got to have a sense of yourself. Your intent has to start from you accepting that energy within and you being happy with that energy within no matter what. Artists find a happiness because they're able to create something out of nothing. They're pregnant with ideas. And a lot of true artists, they don't really care whether you like it or not. They just... Now, when you start getting into the business and once you, like you said, the corporations, and you get into industry of artistry, then it starts turning into something where it's akin to saying, going outside in the street and asking people how you look. You don't do that. You like, this is me. if you like me or not. That's usually the artist code, or at least where I came from. In the 60s, I was born in the 60s. I always was raised as an artist. In the 70s, the attitude was like, well, none of it was profitable. It was like, this is what I do because this is what makes me happy. I ain't making music for nobody else. Now, I have an obligation when I perform the music because you find people say, I like this, or I could dig it, or I understand it. So we want to see you do that so we could vibe together. That's when your obligation comes in to say, okay, I got to present that vibe. I can't flip up on this vibe. This is the vibe that you dug. But when I made it for me.
You have a book that's coming, a graphic novel. We're not going to get it till next year. But when you talk about your art and who your audience is, what was that? Like, where did that come from?
I do a lot of different types of art, and I do art really seriously.
Just to do it.
Yeah. And they're in different names or whatever, but my chunk art is something that was along the line of being able to be a political cartoonist and make social commentary, but in the art. So the art is basically, I'm tired of typing. I don't like to type. I will write it out. I don't want to spend all my time doing digital graphic stuff like that. To me, anybody can do all that. I want to do something from the essence of me and speak to that, or even get into my area of sci-fi or out of this world type of art, which is necessarily only for like small core niche audiences, depending what that art is. That's to me, it's an unexplored territory, although I've been doing it all my life. When my dad passed away, it was therapeutic. It took me I was telling Schoolie D this today, because he's an artist too. We're going to do museum art shows. And I said, man, Schoolie, it took me 1,000 days to get my style back.
Wow.
I had when I was 24 years old, that I nurtured all my life up to that point. And then I got involved with Public Enemy and music and hip hop and all that. And I left it alone for 30 years.
From the young man who was designing before he created Public Enemy, and that iconic logo, which I'm sure not a lot of people realize that you created that logo. But how has your art developed from that to now?
It didn't develop. It had to go back and get that.
Right.
It's back to where that ability was and where that vision was and that portal was that was able to see the unseen. Right now you could do so many phenomenal things. And this is why the metaverse will be mind-blowing, because people have AI to take them in the realm, because AI will not get dumber. It will only get smarter. It will get sharper, and it will create realities on top of realities. They will refine it. But one thing AI will never be able to do in the next 3 years. Man,
only 3 years. Yeah.
They won't be able to capture the essence of mistake. And that soul is an accident. You got it or you don't. And AI will try to, they can't make human mistakes on a feeling yet. They'll be perfect. As a matter of fact, they could even be imperfect, but they can't be imperfect on a soul notion. And that's what Black music is anyway. Black music, half the time, is the F-ups. You know what I'm saying?
So what is what would you say is your most successful mistake, your most favorite mistake that had the best outcome that you just never expected?
Public Enemy #1 was a dub tape off of 2 tape decks with kind of like, it had no timing. It was just voice on top of whatever. And the fact that it was the Beautiful Ugly event. When we wanted to make Public Enemy as a recording, we had problems because we could not duplicate the amount of mistakes in the original tape that turned everybody out.
Chuck, I'm going to go back to what you said about Schoolie D, because we had Ice-T. We had Ice on here a couple of months ago, and Ice was like, listen, Schoolie D was the one that turned me out. It's interesting hearing you say, like, about Schoolie D as well. So, you know what I mean? I just wanted to just touch on that, because I know you and Ice are great friends. You know what I mean? Also, I hear congratulations are in order for your new role at UCLA. What will the focus of your lectures be?
Definitely set up, you know, by my wonderful ex-wife, who just was able to make this program happen. She's a professor over there at UCLA, and she said it was really something that needs to be done. And Dr. Aleem wanted to actually do it, Sammy Aleem, and that's where it went from that point. And we're looking forward to doing some things over there based on rap, race, reality, but really kind of like honing in on Davey D's Can't Stop, Won't Stop book, him and Jeff Chang, and a couple other books, saying rap music and hip hop history, and just a fantastic couple other books we want to add into that program as well.
But I have to say that you were my professor as a teacher,
and mine as well.
As a young lady navigating herself through the world. I think I read the autobiography of Malcolm X when I was about 14 or something like that, and then found you, and it was you're the spark that had me find out who Chesimard was. I was like, who is he talking about when he says Chesimard? And then I found out who Joanne Chesimard was, and grew from there. And I guess that that same energy will be taken into these courses and these lectures that you do. So I think it's very important that you do what you've always done, which is bring the knowledge. I'm a child of hip hop, and one of the elements of hip hop which people tend to forget is knowledge. I tried to break dance, it really wasn't happening. I'm not a great MC. For me, I could never do the art thing, you know, mess with the hands and all of that. But for me, it was always about knowledge. And I think that's one of the elements that always gets forgotten about in the culture. And that's what you always represented to me, was the knowledge. And that gave me the confidence as a young Black woman to be enveloped by this culture.
Really, like I said, like at the age and stage I am now, it's, you know, you're what you call, I just saw with my man Jahi, who's also, he does professor work up in the Bay Area. And we put together a project called Enemy Radio. And John and I wrote this song called Man Listen, which we break down kind of like the lifetime of a person down in the 4 quarters, like an American basketball game or American football game. First 20 years, second 20 years, 40 is halftime. Your third quarter is 40 to 60. Your fourth quarter is 60 to 80. And anything after that is overtime, as they say. So I'm final quarter. And what you want to be able to do is set templates for people to come in and be able to become teachers. So they have to. I mean, the world belongs to a lot of people who are definitely from 0 to 50. They have to kind of man and woman up. Where I have to be able to just be there for advice when somebody wants to come in that zone. Somebody 40 years old, 50 years old. You can't get twisted and thinking that here at 65, 70, 61, that you're going to be up there teaching a lot of 20. It shouldn't work that way. We're not in the same zone as a 60-year-old and a 20-year-old. Some intermediaries got to be in the middle that be able to directly let them know what they like, what they're looking for, and how to prepare and be open to that. We have to be there for somebody who might be 50 or 40 who's trying to figure out, well, damn, I'm trying to get to like 60 like you and still be kind of vibrant. And I don't want to go through the pitfalls of all my peers who are passing away at 45, at 51, 37, bad health, and all these other things and constructs that we think that's inherently ours, and all of a sudden falling into those particular traps, thinking that, damn, I thought, you know, I could eat this every day. You know, health, mental health, right? mental health is basically saying you are not all alone. And then we got to like do the best we can to work together, especially with our youth and our young ones. And I got, a young child that really seriously, we work together to try to figure out not only, that human being, but also the surroundings of that human being with other people who might not have the tools to be able to be able, to set their child straight or their classroom straight and all that. So there's a lot of uncertainties and there's a lot of fear. And young people, and let me tell you, straight up and down, this digital metaverse is doubled in power since the pandemic. You can manage the digital space before the pandemic. A year, 2 years into stay in the box and rely on a screen. Everybody's a screen agent now. And rely on the screen as your best friend has created the separation of human beings. The challenge is to be able to tell your loved ones that we got to do our best job to hold on to our humanity. And that's a challenge.
So in saying that, what are your top tips to survive lockdown?
As an artist, right? Not going around the world for a year and a half for the first time in 35 years, like on a regular basis, spending half the time outside of the country. That was an unbelievable, fantastic amount of rest and relaxation, mind, body, and soul. I relished in that. But also, it was, I don't know, is captivating a good word or bad word? Yes.
It can be a bit of both, can't it?
Depends what it is, yeah.
It can be a bit of both.
And I traveled throughout the United States. I cannot be boxed up in one city. I'm in 3 or 4 cities at the same time in the U.S., so I definitely did that. I know as a tour person who's been on 116 countries and over 100 tours that your number one thing, and this is my number one rule, is that you got to take care of your immune system. Because, just in common speak, you can't get sick on the road. Cannot get sick on the road. You get sick on the road, you got problems. That helped me during the pandemic. That comes from just the fact that, we can all disappear tomorrow. But to volunteer ourselves to sickness is crazy.
It's crazy, man.
To give ourselves the sickness, like, yeah, here, take me, I'm yours. No, you fight illnesses coming at you. And a lot of times you're going to be thrown in situations where illness is all around you. Sickness is all around you. You got to figure out how to go in there and just kind of harbor up. And everybody got their different ways and they got their different things that they're going to do. But I will tell you this, the older you get, you got to concentrate on that. You got to, you can catch a bad one just with your blood pressure by waking up too urgent.
Yeah.
You jump up at 61, man, you be like, the room starts spinning. It's like, I ain't going to be on the stage. Yeah, I might look the part, but I ain't going to do no backflip on the stage. Nah.
I don't ever remember you doing any backflips, nah. Even when you were like 25.
but I could.
If you wanted to.
My job is I'm going to do it. I'm going to power it through. I'm going to give 2.5 hours of energy, effort, and hope Flavor can keep up with me. So
imagine the airports are open. Where's the first place? Where are the places you miss visiting? How could I
not miss London?
London
is a public enemy.
Yes.
Yeah. London is public. But see, this is new to people in the United States, even to this day. I would tell people in the United States, we are not yours. We're from Roosevelt, Long Island, but our first place in the United States is Philadelphia, which is shared though. But we wanted to have a place that we called our own. So immediately I started communicating to people in London and being open to the scene that was in London, because I noticed that it was a scene that wanted to be seen and be heard. And and especially there was a blackness that said, we want to be acknowledged. We are parents' children, but we ain't them. We not going to be quiet in this society. We got something to feel and do. And we were around at that same time that encouraged that. You know what I'm saying? And what happened to Public Enemy in 1987, 1988, and 1989, to me, that 1,000-day period cannot be duplicated. But that was the British invasion.
Yeah, for real.
So it's not Public Enemy as much as it is Public Enemy and the appetite right for that time to speak out and be is the pinnacle of that period. People talk about hip hop. It was a hip hop golden era, but yeah, it was a hip hop golden era for a lot of us. But it was a movement era in the UK for that Black understanding, which didn't mean solely Black. It meant it was a hip hop thing, which embraced, everybody came into that fold. Everybody, Black, white, whatever, boom, boom, came into that understanding where they had to salute and honor that movement of Black energy. The movement of Black energy had to get, I saluted, or, I got to step back and give it some room, because that's right. That's real. We got to acknowledge that. You know what I'm saying? So, we don't take credit for that. You say you give thanks because you were a pinnacle in the moment. And the moment was essential to give people a sense of being able to be thankful for letting them be themselves.
So London was definitely that for you. And it was for us as well. So where else did you feel that? Where else did you feel at home?
Ghana. 1990. Brazil, 1991. We were supposed to go to South Africa right when it turned, right? Flavor had broke his arms and Terminator had broke his legs, and we didn't go because of their injuries. And somebody would tell me, said, if we had went to South Africa at that particular time, South Africa at that time was like fueled and powered up so much on Public Enemy. We missed that mark. We went to a couple other African nations. Every time we went to Japan, it was mind-blowing and revolutionary. Down in Asia, even going to Beijing, definitely Australia, definitely in New Zealand with the, Maori people. Wherever Public Enemy set foot in, there was an understanding of the underdog, knowing that it had something to say. Public Enemy and Ice-T went to Croatia during the Civil War with the former Yugoslavian Republic, Croatia, and Serbia, Montenegro, Slovenia. And they stopped war for one day. Mercenaries was at the gig, man. Mercenaries. Everybody I'm Serbs and Croats, man. Like in Zagreb, all right, I'm here on the low, but we here checking out this concert. The first time that crossed over into the Eastern Bloc. We was there at the same time the wall in Berlin fell. So when the wall fell, that opened up all the East. And we were amongst the first. And people used Fight the Power and Public Enemy, what we stood for, against the thing that were curtailing the freedoms by their government.
Yeah, for
100%.
real.
Going back into Ireland back in the day.
What was that like?
Be seriously it goes down for real.
Oh, I've been to Belfast.
I've played Belfast many times. Yeah. I was in Belfast, and and some guys came to me and said, Frost, we have to move you from this hotel to another hotel. And I'm like, why? They said, we have to move you. And when they moved me, the next day, the IRA blew up the hotel.
So when you tell people from the United States that you tell them that, the world don't play, man. You get tossed and lost, man.
Yeah.
A lot of things that go on in the United States is vast, and the government and the law protect Black crime. They keep away enough so it can do its thing, and they damn near like find excuses for it to keep perpetuating. Right?
Yep.
And the law keep you from really having a community that really is hooded up. And I mean, just like Jamil Alameen, formerly H-Rap Brown, also known as Brown, the fact that he's in maximum security as a political prisoner in the United States and being obscure, just like Mumia Abu-Jamal and Russell Schultz, these people are removed from the mainstream narrative of Black prisoners through political reasons. And Jamil Alameen cleaned up Atlanta's drug scene in the west end of Atlanta. And the city at that particular time was saying, you can't take the law in your own hands. And he was like, we asked y'all to clean up and y'all didn't do it. We did it. So that created stuff with city government, police, and there was friction between the two. So I heard when they came to get him, they had the right to defend themselves. And what happened is that friendly fire killed one of the officers. They tried to blame it on the Muslims, and it wasn't them. It was the friendly fire. But then that's a scene that they say, all right, friendly fire, but you did it, So we lost one of our great political heroes on some bureaucratic bullshit.
That was one of the first books that I ever read. My mother had Die Nigger Die on the bookshelf when I was growing up. The H-Rap Brown was one of the first people I read when I was about 10 or something.
Oh, I mean, most of my heroes don't appear in those stamps.
So who would you put on a stamp?
There's so many, and also it's like I would ask people
who'd be worthy.
Give me top 10, and let's make stamps for them too, because you have a top 10 where y'all live that's relevant
to you,
to the of what you're about. That is a diasporic stamp. You know what I'm saying? Might not apply to Chicago, which has their own 10, or Bay Area, where we as a people convene. So you always got to be open, not to be talking about where you from, but be able to be like, okay, where you from, and how could we make this a united, especially in the metaverse.
In the metaverse.
We need to have an understanding in the metaverse of who we are and how we exist in it before we are slaves in it. Do we have digital melanin? It's like,
yeah, like, is this the place where we're going to have equality? Is this where it's going to exist? Will racism exist in the metaverse?
Beware all the tricks. We're saying that melanin should not work against us.
Right.
And we're saying that this should be a place maybe where, mindsets are the commonality, but there's a glitch in human beings that say somebody is going to be fucked up somewhere.
Yeah.
Glitch somebody, even when you're growing up, you see people who you grow up, it's like, yo, dude, you just that motherfucker that I don't like,
Like Skynet, right?
Right. It's what it is. So even when something comes in and says, yo, we're going to be fair, we equal, we're going to like, yo, man, it ain't going to be based on how you look and it's going to be some bullshit up in there that's going to get people divided on something in there. In this particular realm, we heard ideas, we've seen the scriptures, we hear people tell their testimonies, but we don't know.
There's something we're not understanding. There's something we're not getting, right?
Right. Now, is this manifested over time if we're still around as a species in another 1,000 years or on this planet, or can we outlive the planet or whatever, a million years, whatever? We don't know. That ain't our calling even to probably know. It's like, what are we going to do with here and now? But we know we're at a crossroad when they're introducing the inner universe called the metaverse to us right now, to the next 3 generations coming in as we move on out. I ain't going to be here 40 years. I might be 100. There might be a way that they synthetically, extend me to 120 or something.
Would you want to live to 120 with your health and your faculties?
number one, I know you know about life, so you want to live life. Mm-hmm. Now, if faculties start disappearing, there's other things that start looking better than you feeling fucked up. I don't think I want to be here if I can't see. Yeah. Mm. I don't think I want to be here if I can't walk, if I can't experience or love the world. Or sometimes it's like mentally, it's like, I don't want to be here if my loved one ain't here no more, or my loved ones ain't here no more. Getting to those crossroads is everyone's individual plateau that a collective can't answer to. Everybody gonna die, but try not to die before your time. Should be a motto. There's been a lot of people passing away recently. It was a past transitioning of a sister-in-law. And it was tough because she was a slow decline from cancer. So at the cemetery, the thing that was disturbing, and she was past a half a century, she was 52, fantastic person. What was disturbing was at the cemetery, there was dozens of people who were there born after 1980. Because you see the first 4 years, 1994, 2020, 1998, 2020. You know what I'm saying? 2003, 2019, 16. You know, a lot of that was disturbing. Would I want to be here to 120? Of course you want to answer, because if God gives you life, you want to just put it in those terms, then you want to live it.
As best you can.
If you can't live life, then you on to the next one, right? Whatever that is. And like I said, I tell the people all the time, my dad used to say, it's like, we go to the same place. I don't care who you know.
All gonna be there.
Right?
What did fatherhood teach you?
Father, there ain't enough time on this fatherhood teaches, number one, humility, and it teaches you the fact that you ain't got all the answers and never will have all the answers, but you got to come up with something.
Because someone's relying on you to know, right? Someone's relying on you to know, so you've got to come up with something.
Yeah. And at the same time, it also teaches you that you cannot master time or master anything. You have to manage time. You could deal with your own children and kids on time. When you have a problem managing older people's time who's supposed to get it, that could be problematic when you put it all together, because you got to choose your poison. Do I want to spend more time with this thing, or do I spend more time with my accountabilities and my responsibilities and family and the people I love? That's a crossroads when you're having something that you're building out there. And sometimes you got to learn to tell the world no.
Is that what flying solo was all about, in that you didn't want to be managing other people and other people's time and other people's stuff?
I always work with someone else. No, flying solo, the only thing I've ever done solo is my artwork. I've never written a song by myself. I've never performed by myself. Flavor, I love them to death. But, at this time where it's like, yo, bro, we make things totally easy for you.
You just need to show up. You just need to show up with the microphone.
That's your own tribe. But we cannot not tolerate you not being 100%. Especially when you're older. We all got to be 100%. Oh, you take care of your passport. Oh, no, you owe the government that. Bro, we can't live. We can't jump in your body and live we have our own situations. We got to come together all as total people to be able to, okay, our Public Enemy is going to do a concert in front of a lot of people. Okay, is it a job? Is it a task? Is it a joy? It's all of those. But you got to come in to a situation not as it fixing your life. You got to come in with a fixed life going into it as an addition to your life. That's what art is short for artificial. It's a simile of life. It is not life itself. So it's an addition to your life. It can't be your life where you actually live inside your art. Yes, it's escapism, but there's real things you got to do in your life. And the freedom that I give, and not that I give, but the freedom that I've always had as a Public Enemy doctrine is that everybody do their thing. And when we come together, this is the thing. But off into your thing, doing your own thing. You on your own, doing your thing. We got love for each other, but you grown-ass person. You know what I'm saying? No, I don't tell you. And this is what I tell younger people this all the time when they tell, yo, man, this so-and-so's fault and all that. And you know, I didn't get it because I was too young. And I was like, yo, you ain't 4. You're like too young.
You're an adult.
You know, if I'm talking to somebody 17, you know what I do? I compare them to somebody 12. So I said, if you think you're too young, what does a 12-year-old say when he's talking to you?
I want to go back to something. Because I woke up one day and I looked and I seen Flavor has been thrown out of the group. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? And I was really upset. They said, Flavor, we can't have you in the group anymore because wait. But then it turned out to be a promotion thing for a new album. I'm right here, yeah?
You are right. You're partially right. First of all, I kicked his ass out for a day.
Okay. All right. Let's get down to it now.
But that's like kicking somebody out of your house.
Yeah.
Your ass is sitting out there on the street based on this, that, this, or whatever. I'm not going to tell people in the street what he did.
Yeah.
One thing about me, I have never said what anybody has done inside my group and told what they've done to put them in that position.
Yeah.
2 days later, we'll be fine. So when I told Flavor, I basically told him, because I think he got together with his lawyer, and I did a thing, and he sent his lawyer on some kind of whatever, and I told him, I said, you don't get your lawyers on me. And he sent his lawyer on me, and I said, okay, this is how that feels. Your ass is sitting this one out.
Yeah. Oh.
So really, it was a clapback on him.
Okay. I was like, whoa.
I want you at any time, bro. Anytime we could do, but you're not going to be the alpha here.
If you look back right up to now, if we talk about all the albums, the tours, the triumphs in war zones, the graphic novels, what would you say your most proudest moment of the last 40 years, like something which you hold up as, wow, I did that, or we did that, or I achieved that? What's something which touches your heart?
Oh, when somebody says thank you. When somebody says, yo, point, and they be dead serious. They like, thank you. You got me through something. Can't top that.
How many times have you heard thank you? And what was your biggest thank you that made you go, wow, like that person said thank you to me?
You know what? It's not thanking me, it's thanking Public Enemy. You know, I'm rapper, artist, writer, MC, channel that, just like Flavor, Griff, Hank, Lord, Terminator, James Baum, contributors, video makers, all that. That's what you're thinking that. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about that. That thing, what that is the greatest thing ever. And I'm proud to be part of that. So I'm not taking any of that credit because I'm like a spoke on the wheel. It came through me, and you give thanks to what that is. You don't take that credit. You can't take. And I think what has happened to rap music, hip hop, and a lot of things in the arts is that people take that credit. When I said in the beginning, my intention was to make music that satisfied me, but it came through me to write, and it had that effect. And then you kind of got to salute that effect. That's why I said when you get in front of people, you got 100% obligation to make that thing live up to its promise. Number one question I would say, well, you really believe that shit? Do you believe that?
Mm-hmm.
Or cool. If you don't believe it, then tell me that you're making it up.
Yeah.
Or the world that you're imagining this. It's all right. You could dare to dream. You could be Steven Spielberg or whatever, you know.
Chuck, there's always something I've always wanted to ask you, you know. Who is Harry Allen?
Harry Allen is an enigma. Classmate, schoolmate from Adelphi University. Was really kind of like one of the first hip hop photographers because that's who, you know, us in Spectrum City and Long Island, he would photograph our gigs. I first met Harry Allen in animation class where we did an animation video of me doing the drawings and Harry Allen shooting and assembling them on the world famous Supreme Team Malcolm McLaren Buffalo Girls. No. So Looking Like a Hobo was a cut that they did. And we did an animated video. Harry Allen also went from that part to become hip-hop's first journalist.
Hey.
I am disappointed because my friend Harry Allen, who's a hip-hop first journalist, has never done a book.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if I'm not a person that spills people's stuff on the streets and
Talk the things.
maybe you got to edit things out.
Come on, Chuck. We're ready. Let's go.
It's like Harry Allen has never written a book, but I went to his house and inside his room, and this is like 25 years ago, inside his room existed 50 books that he could have done. Now it has to be like 300 books, but you know, you could get overwhelmed by the magnitude of what you can do. You're overwhelmed by the enormous, thing that you can do, but you just don't do. And here we are in a later stage of life where Harry's done some significant things. I would love for him to work with my rap station, RSTV app that we own for programming, where people can go to rstvapp.com. Also, we have 10 radio stations on Rap Station. I do a weekly radio show each and every week.
I've done a show on Rap Station for you guys, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Boy, and we're going into the next level of having the visual. Thank you for the drops. Thank you for the shows. Things that we've done and collaborated with. And also at the chip shop and all that. So, 2022 want Harry to be involved somewhere in that as well.
We want to see Harry.
And he's a one of a kind. Communicated with him tonight.
Let him know we were asking for him.
Let him know.
Let him know. We were asking about Harry.
Harry Allen, I gotta ask him.
More significant than Don't Believe the Hype is Harry Allen predicted the world that we all exist in today on the 1994 our message with the Harry Allen Superhighway interactive phone call to Chuck D, where he predicted everything that we're going through today. I ain't got to say anything. When you go there and you listen to it, matter of fact, you're like, wow, because he's predicting the rest of the 90s and he's predicting the first decade of the 2000s. And all you got to do is with Miss J, actually, when she had actually taken me around in 1996 on the autobiography of Mr. Chuck, how crazy was that, right? How did we communicate back then? Crazy, right? Right before emails, any of that. No cell phone, unless you had a brick.
No, we had a cell phone.
Yeah, we had bricks, man. We had bricks.
Text messaging.
Texting and bricks. And the pages, the bleepers.
We had more than that in '96.
No, man, because I remember I had like the little Matrix phone then, man. I had like the little click, the little matrix phone.
I think I had a flip phone. One thing that has been consistent with what you said, it's about self, knowledge of self, governance of oneself. And then you take it out into the world, right? The theme that I hear that you've come out with today is about self, which is very different to where you were before. And I guess that's down to the experience of life, right? And what it's always brought you back to is, who am I in this? What is my message? What is my why? Why am I here? What am I doing? Did I come correct? So that's what I hear has been the theme of this entire conversation. Yeah. But in saying that, do you think there is a place in society then, if we are all about dealing with ourselves and our own selves, is there a place for a young Black man or woman with the discipline and the militancy of Professor Griff, who was that energy with the S1Ws in Public Enemy? Is there space for that now? Would society allow someone like him or her to exist in the way that they did then? How would that translate now?
Yeah, there's plenty of places in the world with that type of thing with you. You got to take on greater responsibility and accountability. If you're going to lead people, you better feed people. You kick out, dish out, you got to be able to take it, because you're not speaking just for yourself. You're speaking for people that you're accountable to and responsible for. So, and you always can find a chink in the armor with somebody that might be under you that don't agree with you. So there's always, we all manifest and evolve to figure, as we go on in time, ways that we grow in and morph into different types. I mean, Griffith, he'd be the first one to tell you, yo, yeah, I evolved into this person 10 years ago, but from that point, I'm evolving into this person I am right now. Meaning that you got to be pliable and flexible with the time, and pliable and flexible with your surrounding people that you love and the people that love you. You can't be rigid with them all the time. He'll be the first to tell you. Same thing with Flavor, same thing with myself. You got to figure, you're going to find clapback on somebody who you raise that won't see your point of view just because they half your age. My daughter runs my company. Seriously, do we bump heads? You damn Skippy. So I got to tell myself, yo, I'm 61, you 33. You got a point there, because you got to live in this world as a Black woman like that. So I got to roll with you on that, and I got to give you something that's going to be useful for you, because we in two different worlds. Yeah.
So for somebody in a different world, like who is coming up, who is in their 20s or 30s, and they're coming up now, like, is there a piece of information which had you had at that age, you think, man, I wish someone had told me that at 33, or I wish someone had told me that. Why didn't I know this at 25?
I was fortunate to have a father in my life. He was the bomb. And you don't learn everything from your parents, but my father was a man of men. And he raised people, and he came from a time where he said people honored that. They wanted that role. Mm. But you see a young Black father, you give that man some props. You see a young Black mother, you give them some help. That's what you do. I mean, why the odds are against them, you don't walk past them on that. And I'm just saying you can't help everybody, but do your best. So, one thing I know that I wish I had back then that we have now, called phone. Mm-hmm. You could go and get, we used to go to the library, or you try to bust your head to try to guess on something, or you trying to hear a song, but you can't get home to check out, your music or whatever. And you got to have it ringing in your head. You know what I'm saying? People, the access to everything and anything at right any there. Given
at your fingertips. Right there. Use it.
And it's taken for granted, but also you got to understand who's taking it for granted. People who think it's normal.
Right. Goes back to generations again.
Granted that I could go buy a dozen eggs. 100 years ago, you had to negotiate with the chicken. You got to understand who you're talking to. And when you're talking to somebody who's in the realm of right now, 30 and 20 years old, you got to give them wisdom on understanding their realities, because you could sit right next to them and you're in two different realms. Yeah, you share the same time and space, but you really don't share the same reality. And you look at the world and with different lenses. So you got to kind of lend yourself to be open to maybe help them see some things in their world. Because you could say, oh, this is what I see in my world. But they'd be like, I still don't see that.
We're going to bring it to a close. I just want to thank you again for your time. Thank you for being such a great guest on the Frost Report. And happy holidays. Once again, send happy birthdays to your brother Eric. And enjoy the rest of the holiday. God bless you. And we look forward to seeing you on your next visit here.
I get high, I feel